Welcome to another edition of Geopolitics and Empire. Support the broadcast. Become a paid subscriber on Substack, $5 a month or more if you like. There's no limit, or $50 annually. We do private weekly chats with members only. I do a compilation of the week's news and provide a brief commentary at the end of every week for members, for paid subscribers only. And on occasion, we bring back past podcast guests and do a live Q&A chat between the guests, myself, and paid subscribers only, and the recording is available afterward for paid subscribers only. So that's the best way to support this podcast. You can also donate through Buy Me a Coffee, Wise, Donor Box, and so forth. And if you want to chat with me, just check out the website. You can purchase a consultation. We can talk about whatever you like: podcasting, expatriation, geopolitics, or the meaning of life. Do leave a podcast review and check out this month's podcast sponsor, Mikhail Thorup's Expat Money Summit. I watch it every year. It's great stuff. It's free. It's from October 7th to the 11th, online only. And so you can watch every day for free. Most of the headline speakers have been on Geopolitics and Empire. I've met some of them in person. Dr. Ron Paul, he's been on the podcast. I've met him. I've even been invited to his home. I couldn't make it. I met Scott Horton and had him on the podcast. Tom Longo is speaking there. He's been on the show. Mark Faber's been on the show. He's speaking there. Doug Casey, Tom Woods. And basically at the summit, they'll be treating a lot of different topics dealing with internationalization. So if you're thinking of Plan B or Plan C or Plan D, getting multiple passports, residencies, investing in real estate abroad, having a bug out place to go to when the tomato hits the fan. And so it's a great resource. The summit, the ticket is free. You have to reserve it, basically sign up. The link is in the description. It's expatmoneysummit.com as well. There's a VIP option as well. That allows you to watch the recordings, because it'll only be free for 24 hours. And then after that, it goes behind the paywall. And I'll be participating in some of the VIP panel sessions as well. Returning to the transmission, it's been a while, is David Skripac, who served as a captain in the Canadian Forces for 9 years. During his 2 years of duty in the Air Force, he flew extensively in the former Yugoslavia, as well as in Somalia, Rwanda, Ethiopia, and Djibouti. Welcome back to Geopolitics and Empire, David.
Thank you, Roy. Dobar dan. Welcome to be. I'm honored to be here. Thank you.
Dobar dan, dobro večer, dobro jutro. How are you? How are you doing? How are things?
Good. It's been very busy, hectic, but been trying to write articles on the side to expose recent events, what's happening in some hotspots around the world. For example, between the Ukraine and Russia, and focusing on economics and continuing with my studies on World War I, World War II, and empires.
Yeah, you had a great piece. We talked last time. It's in the archive. People can check a fantastic piece you wrote that was published on at Global Research and elsewhere on the multipolar world. COVID and many things there. And you've written a new piece which we'll talk about, but first, maybe, just get your thoughts on the state of the world as you see it, where we're at. I just, since the last time we spoke, I just see things as continuing on the downward spiral. It's not looking good. I don't want to sugarcoat anything. I don't want a fake white pill. It's just things are progressively getting worse everywhere you see it. And this recent declaration, the World Homicide Organization has declared again fake public health emergency with their fake Mpox. It's really cute. They've I'm sure they prepped that with their marketing people. Mpox, monkeypox, right? And my comment was, this just happened as gold hit a record price. So it's like the economies are crashing again, and they need to run a pandemic war simulation again. And so, your thoughts on sort of where we are, and what are pressing issues on your mind?
Yes, no, you're right. The latest, again, the fear mongering. They always want to keep us in a state of fear. That's critical. So with the latest monkeypox declaration, and we had the avian flu virus and all these are all just elements of fear, right? How they try to keep this going as long as they can to keep us in this low energy state. So be afraid of even your neighbors now, and these zoonotic diseases, which again it does not exist. I mean, we have to emphasize this. It does not spread from monkey to human. I mean, people will say, yes, but look, David, they have a genetic code for this. The code does exist. But what they won't tell you, yes, it's in an in silico code. In silico means it is a computer-generated design, pure and simple. It does not exist in the real world. So that's one aspect of it. And then you said, the other elements that are coming into the picture, we have manufactured housing crisis. The prices of food staples is going up, lumber, right? Manufacturing supplies. In some cases, trying to manufacture scarcity of food, like they're trying to do in the Netherlands by blaming nitrogen and farming. This is now causing a global warming, right? That's all part of the evisceration of the middle class. That's the first thing they're trying to do, to get us all to the point of almost being impoverished. And then they can say, ladies and gentlemen, don't worry. All the governments in the world, we have an answer for you. Universal basic income. Don't worry, we've got you covered. I know things are expensive. You can't even afford a house anymore. We're sorry about that. But we'll give you universal basic income, which they've already tried to do in the UK. And it'll be whatever X amount per month. And don't worry, it'll be in the form of a digital currency, of course. And as long as you behave, everything will be fine. Until you hit the streets and go protest, then all of a sudden, well, you don't have access to your universal basic income anymore. But that is my slant on it. That's where I think that's where they're driving us, constantly squeezing out the middle class around the world. It's not just located in one area. It may be China, it may be Russia, it may be Mexico. It doesn't matter where you are. We're all feeling this pinch. You go. Sorry, go ahead.
That's exactly where you just laid it out. So I feel the same way. And it's funny you brought that up. I had a recent podcast guest, James Burling of the Pacific Legal Foundation. He wrote a book on the housing crisis. And I was talking to a neighbor, and he was telling me how in Mexico there's a mafia in the city where I live, in Mexico City, like a local Mexican sort of mafia where they buy up all the housing. They build out all the residential housing, and then they inflate the prices and make it unattainable for average person. My neighbor was saying, look, if I hadn't bought the house when I did, our houses have tripled in price, doubled or tripled. He's like, I couldn't buy the same house today. Right. And it's as you say, it's across the board. It's this wiping out of the middle class, and that's where they're pushing us. It's crazy. And COVID is part and parcel of that. And before getting into the Ukraine World War III, your latest piece, which is titled "Lifting the Veil on Russia's Special Military Operation in Ukraine," is Putin's response to NATO's provocations at Potemkin village. I think we both see it the same way. It's a controversial perspective. I've had on the Doug McGregor folks, Scott Ritters. I've had on the Riley Wagamans and Roloslavsky. I think he changed his name to Rurik Skywalker, his pseudonym. And so I've had on both perspectives, but I'm leaning more towards, your perspective. And so, let's talk about the not war in Ukraine. And then also, I think you had some context before you wanted to bring that up about the history, an empire, because how we got to here, because that's important. And I've had a number of guests give their opinion on that recently. Fadi Lama, Parallel Mike, Mies, Baijen, and all of them gave their sort of arc of history to how we got here. So, please tell us more.
Yeah, no, I listened to your Mays interview. That was brilliant. Mays is incredible how he in chronological order went through all the monetary empires that controlled certain aspects of the world right up to now. So my interest in empire started even before I joined the military, and what I've come to realize is that it's all about economics. No matter what conflict we're looking at, we're dealing with economics. So if we go back right from the very beginning, let's say 3,600 BCE, the first city-states emerged in what was that time called Sumer, later became Mesopotamia, today Iraq. That's where the first city-states started to emerge. And then around approximately 2,300 BCE, that's when one guy came along, Sargon, an emperor, Sargon the Great, who got these city-states together and formed the Akkadian Empire. And how did he do that? It's again, and why did he do that? That's the key. The motive. What is the motive in all these cases? Is because he wanted to acquire more and more resources and more wealth, and to increase trade. And again, that translates to more wealth. So that's how he amalgamated all these city-states and created the first empire. And he was the emperor. Now, while this was going on, of course, the Egyptian empire already, or the Egyptian kingdom, that was not an empire, it was a kingdom at that time. It already started as well. And they were doing the same thing. The first dynasty and onwards, they were always trying to, again, gather wealth for economic prosperity. The key example I can give from the Egyptian case is when we look at Tutankhamun's sarcophagus, the beautiful gold head of Tutankhamun. It's incredible gold, but what people don't realize, that's not Egyptian gold. The Egyptians had no gold in their territory. They had copper, they had silver, anthracite, and other metals, but they didn't have gold. So what they did is they created then a false pretext to go into the Nubian Empire. South of the Egyptian kingdom was the Nubian Empire, the Great Black Nubian Empire. Advanced civilization, mathematics, and sciences, but they had gold, and that was not really something that they probably regretted having, because the Egyptians then said, okay, we're going to make up a false pretext that there's civil unrest in Nubia, and we have to go in there and quell that civil unrest. It could get out of control, and they could come up north. So that's what the Egyptians did several times over. They invaded Nubia to get the gold, and that's why Tutankhamun and many of the pharaohs had their gold sarcophaguses and other precious gold jewelry and everything like that. That's all Nubian. And then we go flash forward to the Roman Empire as well. The same thing. The Romans fought three Punic Wars. When we put all those three Punic Wars together, they lasted 43 years. 43 years of conflict. Started right when Rome was still a republic. And then even when it became an empire, they were still trying to destroy, through these three Punic Wars, they did destroy the Carthaginian Empire. What was it for? It was for domination of the Mediterranean. And with it, access to incredible markets, from lumber to olives to the spice markets. Yeah, that's all translated to wealth. The Romans were not invading or destroying Carthage because they wanted to expand Roman values or the Roman currency. It's nothing to do with that. It's about gaining markets, access to markets. And there's a pattern that's been going on millennia after millennia. And many scholars will agree. And the British Empire was doing the same thing with their crown jewel in India. I mean, during the entire span that the British controlled India, their crown jewel, according to British historian Richard Gott, it's called Britain's Empire. That's the G-O-T-T, Richard Gott, brilliant British historian. He said during Britain's entire rule over India, they murdered at least 100 million people. This is scarcely mentioned today. But and the British used several different tactics. It wasn't at a machine gun or at the end of a barrel. They used manufactured famine. They did shoot people, execute them outright, tie them to the end of a cannon, and blew them to smithereens as punishment. All sorts of savage techniques that the British used. And why was it all for? It was for access to India, where they could grow opium, and therefore then sell the opium and transport to China and gain access to the Chinese market. So it's all about economics. And most historians agree now that is the modus operandi. It is about economics, gaining an upper hand over your potential adversary, who may have some goodies that you may desire. Right? So and historians agree, until we get up to 1914. Then all of a sudden, when we reach the period of World War I and II, historians differ and say, no, that was our benevolent period. We all of a sudden entered this new paradigm where we had to spend the freedom, and it was our moral obligation to defend Europe and to spread democracy and to help save capitalism and democracy. All these things. And then after even World War II ended, okay, then many historians agree, yes, what Americans did in Iraq, what the American Empire did in Iraq was savage, Afghanistan, etc., the Korean War, Vietnam War, etc., etc. But when we look at World War I and II, where millions of people died, World War I, approximately 16 million people died, World War II, approximately 70 million people died, and we still don't know why. Why we're intentionally misdirected so that we don't know why this conflict happened. For example, if we look at World War I, just a brief macro look to think about it logically. Okay, before the war started in summer 1914, Britain, which declared, no, we have to do this for democracy and it's going to be the war to end all wars. We have to do this for freedom and to save Europe. But when we look back, okay, England at that time in 1914 had conquered 1/4 of the Earth's surface through various means. Some brutal, as I mentioned, India, vicious and other more benign ways, but nevertheless, they quartered 1/4 of the Earth's surface. And this empire, which Britain was an empire, is supposed to bring freedom and democracy to Europe. Right. So just looking at that macro look, okay, something doesn't add up there. Something is not right. And of course, when you dig deeper, for example, James Corbett did an amazing World War I documentary, and other writers have written The Hidden History of World War I. I think it was by McGregor and another author.
Again. Yeah, actually, I think it's Jim McGregor, who's friends with Mies and
yes,
Doherty, something Doherty.
Yes,
and I was like, and I had on another guest from Sweden. Oh my goodness, I'm forgetting his name, Mats Nielsen, and he brought that up, and I'm like, I gotta get that book. And I discovered that I bought it in 2019, 5 years ago. It's been sitting on my Kindle, and I haven't had time to read it yet. So I brought it back to the top of my list, Hidden History, right? Alex Craner and others have told me that this is a fantastic book on World War I.
It is. It's absolutely amazing. Once you take it in a deep dive into that rabbit hole, then you realize it's all about economics. Germany was very strong after it unified and became even stronger economically, not militarily. Economically, Britain made the decision then, okay, we have to destroy this up-and-coming upstart, this new empire. Because England's always had the policy never to let another empire rival emerge on the European continent. And then they successfully carried that out and destroyed Germany. So then, and that's it in the nutshell for World War I. Of course, there's a lot more details, but that's the macroeconomic look at that. Then we come to World War II. The common narrative says, okay, no, this megalomaniac, lunatic Hitler just had a crazy idea. I'm going to conquer the world. I have no aircraft carriers, but I'm going to conquer the world somehow with no aircraft carriers. And a navy that was not on par with the British Navy, but they're going to conquer the world. That's the official narrative we taught. And of course, we have to stop him. He's a crazy lunatic. Again, that's something that didn't sit right with me. Okay, because like I said, the history of empire is all about economics, including even the conflict. Something as simple as we look at Northern Ireland, Belfast, what Britain did in Ireland. It's also about economics. Yes, you have a religious aspect on the surface. That's what they're telling you. It's about religious problems. People not getting along on religious grounds, but it's all about economics as well. So until we reach World War II, like I said, then no, it was about spreading freedom and democracy in the world. Again, by the British Empire, they again ruled 1/4 of the Earth's surface. And the American Empire, which became an empire by 1901, America was an empire after the Spanish-American War. So then, and what got me into World War II is something that happened to my father. In 1942, my father was tasked by his dad to go to a neighboring farm to get some lantern oil. My father got the oil from the neighboring farm, and on his way home, he was stopped by a German military patrol. German forces controlled that part of Yugoslavia at that time, and they apprehended my dad because they thought, you're carrying oil to the partisans. Okay, and then my father was imprisoned, almost executed, but thanks to a miracle, that the farmer's girl came and pleaded with the Germans and showed evidence that no, my father is not working for the partisans or the communists, that he's delivering oil to his dad. And so the Germans did free him, thankfully. That's why we're talking today. Otherwise, history would have been written differently. But that's what made me think, okay, and my father always said, yeah, but think now of the big picture. Why were the Germans there? Why were the Italians there? Well, the Italians had there were different reasons, but the Germans had their reasons because of the recent coup that had taken place in the Balkans, where the previous Yugoslavian government was overthrown by a Serbian Air Force officer, and a pro-British government was installed. And who was supporting the partisans? Well, the British were. It was not the Soviets, it was the British that were. And Tito was firmly supported right from the very start by British intelligence, and by arms that were being delivered to the partisans were by the British. Why were the British doing that? So the Germans did not have access to Romanian oil. Yes, granted, Standard Oil, the Rockefellers were shipping oil to Germany and oil lubricants and other things for manufacturing, but Germany's main supply was Romania. Incidentally, the Rockefellers were also shipping oil to France and the Soviet Union as well. So they're playing all sides in this affair, right? So, but going back to why the Germans were there, to again, the last thing they wanted to do, Hitler's eyes was on the intentions of invading Soviet Russia, which is again a crime. But the last thing they wanted to do was to go into Yugoslavia, and that was to secure their Romanian oil resources there. So that's what got me into all the studying into World War II history, and we take a deep dive into that, and why was Germany labeled as a pariah to this very day. It's Germany, National Socialist Germany is a pariah because they're insane. They just want to take over the world, persecute the Jews. Yes, of course, they were anti-Semitic, but so was France and other nations. The Germans were more, but that's why we went to war. It's nothing to do about economics, no. But then looking at Winston Churchill's own writing, and if we could bring Winston Churchill into this conversation, Winston Churchill, in his own book called The Second World War, he states, Germany's unforgivable crime before World War II was its attempt to loosen its economy out of the world trade system and to build up an independent exchange system from which the world finance sector could not profit from, unquote. This is Winston Churchill saying Germany's unforgivable crime was all to do about economics. He didn't say Germany's unforgivable crime was armament and persecuting the Jews, and that's why we have to go in there, and curtailing individual freedom. It's about exactly what he says there. And so when we start looking at that, then a whole different picture emerges. It's all about economics. The National Socialists were able to turn the German economy around within a 3-year span from 1933, when they got into power in 1936. And that was by credit creation, creating a unit of value, not a unit of debt, by the German Reich Ministry. And that's how they were able to create working programs, creating businesses and employment opportunities. So they were completely able to turn the German economy around. Many was arguing, no, it's because Germany decided to rearm. It was the rearmaments industry that spurred the economic miracle. But that started after 1936. Between 33 and 36, Germany prospered. It was so good that Hitler was even made Man of the Year, named Man of the Year in 1938, right on the cover of Time magazine, and they outlined why, because it was for the economic miracle. Now, if we contrast that with FDR's policy, the New Deal, it was sputtering. By 1937, it was not working still. Even though he confiscated gold from the average American citizen, it was not working. So FDR said, no, we have to do another course of action, and that's try to create conflict with National Socialist Germany. That didn't work. Hitler didn't take the bait. FDR was at war on the high seas, attacking German merchant marine, even trying to shoot at German battleships. This is prior to World War II, prior to 1939, on the North Atlantic. Hitler strictly gave orders, do not engage the Americans. We do not want war with the Americans. Do not engage. So that didn't work. So FDR said, okay, to spur my economy, I'm going to try to start a conflict with Japan, where Japan was doing illegal things in Manchuria, of course. But from the Japanese perspective, from their imperial perspective, they said, well, America and the European countries have a piece of the action in China. Why can't we? So they wanted, again, a piece of economic action, not military action, but to exploit the Chinese economy economically as best they could. So yes, China was there illegally, but so were many other nations, including the United States. So, but from FDR's perspective is, no, China belongs to us and only us, not to the Japanese. So he thought this is a perfect opportunity where we're going to try to create a foment war with Japan. Prime Minister Prince Kaione, desperately leading up to the days before Pearl Harbor, to the weeks before Pearl Harbor in September 1941, pleaded with the FDR, please, okay, let's have dialogue. Let's reach an agreement. I will meet you in Hawaii. I can meet you in Alaska, wherever you like. If you want to know where I'm getting this information for from Herbert Hoover's diaries. Very illuminating. It's incredible. It's incredible. So Prince Keone never heard anything back from the White House. Nothing. He's going, what's going on? Why is FDR not responding to any of our pleas? We will leave Manchuria if you want, but let's have dialogue. Let's try to meet a common ground. Of course, there was silence because FDR, that's exactly what they wanted, was to foment war as best they could. And what are we getting at again is economics. Because FDR wanted to revitalize his economy. There's many books now written that when we look at FDR's New Deal, it really didn't revitalize until 1947, 2 years after World War II, when America finally got back on its feet and recovered from the Great Depression. So these are all economic aspects. And now flashing forward, here we are again.
And before just moving on, I had a few thoughts. And when you cited Churchill, again, the point, it's this globalization, this globalist globalization, where their end game, Cecil Rhodes talked about it. They wanted a world government, to take the British Commonwealth writ globally. Yeah. And that's the end game. That's globalization. And they need every single nation to plug into that system. And then, as you detail, Germany wasn't on board. And today, we've got the remaining holdouts like Venezuela or Syria or North Korea or Iran. There's a few countries that are still hanging on with their teeth. And they're of different colors, as you say. They're not, I'm no fan of Nicolas Maduro. But, the alternative as well is kind of like they both kind of stink. And I was also going to mention, when you talk about your father, I've mentioned before, my grandfather, Croatian grandfather, was also, he was a prisoner of the Nazis during World War II. And one more thing, interesting point, since you brought up Tito, just incredible how the world is. So some months back, I met some Croatian Mexicans here. So Mexicans of Croatian heritage. This lady, I can't remember if it was her father or grandfather, was Croatian. Her last name is still Croatian. They come from somewhere in Dalmatia. And she told me that, he came from Croatia to Mexico in the early 1900s. I don't know the year. And she even told me that at one point, he brought over Tito to Mexico. That he like, I don't know if he was friends with Tito or something, but he like brought Tito over and I guess gave him a tour or something. This must have been when he was much younger, Tito. And it's just absolutely fascinating history. And then her son, who's about my age, told me that, one day he went back to the islands where his grandfather came from, and knocking on doors, and the Croatians there with the same last name, they're like, oh yeah, come in, and we've had Mexicans pass through before and stay with us, because it's just amazing how the world is. And I was just like, oh, Croatians in Mexico. Anyways, moving forward to the not war, what's happening now with Ukraine, talk of World War III, Putin's weak response to NATO provocations. What's really going on here in your mind?
Yeah, well, let's take a look from the 30,000 foot altitude look, from the macro look, looking down. For me, the litmus test is, what have nations done over the past 4 years to their populations? So as from the macro point of view, has Putin done anything differently than his Western counterparts? My answer is a resounding no. He's imposed lockdowns, social distancing, mask wearing, the experimental injections like Sputnik 5, CBDCs. Russia's trying to roll out CBDCs faster than its Western counterpart. It's exactly the same thing there, and trying to enforce the biosecurity state. They're even developing now their own mRNA pharmaceuticals in Russia. So from that perspective, we see there's no difference. There's no difference. We see a slight difference in Belarus. Lukashenko, he never locked down his population, never abided by any of these World Harm Organization edicts. So yeah, Lukashenko is a dictator, absolutely, but at least he's siding more with the people and said, no, I don't want to play this game. But other we look at the Putin aspect, the Kremlin's point of view, no, they're lockstep with the World Economic Forum, with the World Health Organization agenda, et cetera, et cetera. So right away, that tells me, okay, so from the macro perspective, do we have a multipolar world order? No. To me, tell me if I'm wrong, but to me, it's a unipolar world order. They're all in the same case. If you look at India, you look at South, like the BRICS nations, for example, South Africa during the lockdowns, they were vicious, absolutely vicious in the lockdowns. So the BRICS are no option. China was horrible too, locking in entire people in entire buildings, welding the door shut so they couldn't escape and burned to death. It's just horrible things like that. So is the Chinese government any different than the European government or the Canadian government? No, absolutely not. Of course, there are varying degrees of totalitarianism here that we're talking about, but at the end, we're talking about the same evil, right? So, and Russia is no different. So we have the Kremlin that's working in lockstep with the World Economic Forum. Putin even met Klaus Schwab in 2019 at the St. Petersburg conference. They talked about more working partnerships between national governments and private partnerships, public-private partnerships, so that they're all working at that aspect. So now, and then we're led to believe, okay, but no, the SMO, the special military operation launched by the Kremlin, no, that's the real deal. This is an all-out war because of what the Pentagon, the CIA, and several European countries did in 2014 with the Euromaidan coup. They ousted the pro-Russian presidency with a anti-Russian, more pro-Ukrainian regime. And that's when the conflict started. As we know, the artillery shelling for years. Ukrainians are shelling the Donbass and vice versa until finally the SMO was launched in February 2022. And we were told, no, this is the real war. This is now a game changer. Putin's going to show it to those globalists. Well, okay. At first, I was taken in by it at first too. I thought, okay, maybe he will do something here, because they tried to come in from the north of Ukraine's capital, Kiev. The Russian forces came right in within range of the city, on the auspices or on the information given to them by the security service, the FSB, who was telling them, no, don't worry, there's pro-Russian elements in Kiev that are going to try to sue for peace and reach a deal with you. So don't worry, just come close and everything will happen in your favor, and the Kiev regime will reach some kind of accommodation with you and stop the conflict in Donbass. That never happened. The Kremlin was misinformed. Within 3 months later, they hightailed it out of the northern Kiev territory, leaving a lot of their equipment behind, which I'm sure the Ukrainian military loved that part, and then withdrew. And we've had kind of a tit for tat ever since then. So yes, there's a definite conflict. So we have to, again, make sure the listeners understand part of the SMO is fake, but the real part is the killing. That part is sadistic and brutal. It is hundreds of thousands of Slavic men on both sides, including civilians. It's Slav against Slav. That's what's really happening. So young men are again dying at the battlefield for an agenda, which does not appear as it seems to be. Just like we're still being told on November 11th in the Western world, especially in Canada, United States, November 11th is Remembrance Day. We have to remember our boys, the young men who gave their lives in World War I, II, the ultimate sacrifice for freedom and democracy, which is the wrong reason why we should be remembering them. We should be remembering them that they also died for an economic agenda, and we should never let that happen again to our young men. But this is what we see happening now in Ukraine, where the average Russian farmer or middle class to lower class is being sent to the front lines to be killed, yes. And the Russians have had some small gains, like a small town here, or they've taken Avdiivka. Great, okay. But it's been a stalemate. But the real kicker for me was once I discovered, according to TASS, this is a Russian source, not me, a Russian source, that on a daily basis, starting already September of 2022, just a few months after the SMO started, the Russians reached a deal with Ukraine that they can transport to the Suzda gas metering station, 42.1, it varies, 40 to 42.1 million cubic meters of natural gas through the Suzda station, through so-called enemy Ukrainian territory into Western Europe, where Austria, Slovak, Czech Republic are eagerly awaiting for this natural gas. So that right away was warning signal to me. Okay, something's not right. If Putin's fighting the dangerous tentacles of NATO at his very doorstep, why are they allowing the natural resources, the vital natural resources, to be transported through Ukrainian territory and then sold? And they're paying the Ukrainian government for this service so they can transport Russian natural gas to the territory. And of course, the funds that the Ukrainians receive from that, well, they can do anything they want with that, including buying weapons to further kill young Russian men. It's insane once you look at that aspect. But yet we have pro-Putin analysts. They're saying, no, Putin's going to take Odessa any day now. You watch, you'll see it. He's going to take Odessa. How? With what? NATO is still continuing sending German-made Leopard 2 A6 tanks to the main field, M1 Bradleys, even American tanks. The Abrams tank is showing up at the front line. How are they getting that equipment? If I was a military strategist, my first thing would be to blow up the installations wherever this equipment is. This equipment is being shipped by rail to Ukraine, offloaded, and then transported unmolested to the front lines. So again, why is this being allowed to happen? If this is a real war, the first thing you're going to hit is all the infrastructure to make sure this doesn't happen. But it's not. And of course, now, like prior to the SMO in 2022, the conflict was being maintained within the Donbass region and Ukrainian territory, what we consider the country of Ukraine today. That was prior to the SMO. Today, the situation is vastly reversed. Now we have drones, Ukrainian drones flying over Russian territory. Belgorod is being shelled with impunity on almost a weekly, daily basis, and Russia is unable to respond. Ukrainian armed forces are now no longer fighting in Ukraine. They're setting foot on Russian territory now. The battlefront is now moving into Russia proper. That was not happening prior to February 2022. So the situation's got gravely worse for Russia. And speaking of which, as of August of this year, starting August 9th, Ukrainian forces advanced almost 20 kilometers in just 3 days in the direction of the Kursk region, exactly where the Sudza gas station, gas metering station is. Did the Ukrainians blow up that gas metering station? Of course not. No, that gas metering station was secured so that the flow of natural gas continues to Europe and both sides can profit from this exchange. So all is not what it seems to be. And so, like I said, we have the macro picture is they're playing hand in hand with the World Economic Forum and this entire technocracy that's has been already rolled out in China, being implemented now in Russia and throughout the rest of the world. That's the macro aspect, and then the sub aspect is this conflict, which I believe is a staged and managed conflict. But the killing, as I said, is real. It's very real. The suffering of the average Ukrainian person, when you come home one day and your building is gone, it's disappeared, it's vaporized by Russian missile, that is real, and that's real suffering. I know people that have personally experienced that. That's why I can tell you from firsthand, from just inside of the Ukraine. So that part is real, but everything else, I'm sorry, it's a staged and managed affair. And both sides, the oligarchy on the Ukrainian side and the oligarchy on the Russian side, are benefiting at one level, but then you have another upper level, whereas the Klaus Schwabs of the world and the Bank of International Settlements, that hierarchy, and the military-industrial complex, the pharmaceutical complex, the big agriculture complex, they're relishing this. Just look at what's happened to Ukrainian land since 2014. I mean, we have BlackRock and Vanguard who have financed major enterprises to sell off whatever they can. The Ukrainians have sold off whatever land they can to Cargill and other big ag conglomerates from the United States, and all being financed by BlackRock and Vanguard.
So my way to make sense of this then is, I think of the word allegiance when you think of Putin and the Kremlin and the collective Kremlin, as Yuri Roshka calls it. Their allegiance then is not to their people and to their country. It's to these special interests, to the oligarchy that surrounds them, because that's the foundation of their power, is this Russian oligarchy that's plugged into the globalist oligarchy. And that same template, formula it's the same everywhere else. The EU, the UK, US, here in Mexico, where you've got, so basically democracy and voting and the killing, that's for us plebes and serfs. Yeah. And then there's this structure above that's interconnected. So that's sort of how I see it, where the collective Kremlin, the collective West, China hasn't entered the fray in that regard yet, but I think the elite in Moscow don't look. It's the same thing everywhere. Like if Bush and Cheney and Clintons and the Bidens and Trumps, they'll send off millions, of however many Americans to die. They don't care about Americans. They killed millions of Iraqis for no reason. They don't care about human life, whether they're their own citizens or foreigners. Why do you think that mentality wouldn't be different for Russian state oligarchy or EU countries? I just kind of why do we think that a foreign nation leaders would think any different, right?
Exactly. Like I did the brief outline with empire. We're all acting. Every single empire has the same motivation. It's about economics and getting. It's not about helping the people at all. When the Egyptian government invaded the Nubian government, it was not about to increase the living standard of the average Egyptian. No, it was for the pharaoh's wealth to increase, and the same applies today. So, and some people, no, you just have to vote in the right direction. Well, voting is not going to do it. For example, if we look at the American system, the republic, okay, the average American, when they vote for the representative to go and hopefully represent them, right, in Congress. But can that representative be bought out? Absolutely. For example, if we look at the military-industrial complex, Lockheed Martin, they give direct contributions, campaign contributions to both sides. It doesn't matter, Republican, Democrat. We have big pharma giving political contributions in every spectrum. We have political contributions. If organizations, for example, if we look at the American-Israeli Public Affairs Committee, AIPAC, as of August of this year, they've already collected over $30 million from donors to contribute directly to political campaigns. Now, in 1955, AIPAC couldn't do that. But today, they are allowed to directly contribute to individual political campaigns. So are we surprised then that no one in Congress speaks out as the genocide is happening right now in Gaza with the aid of the American empire, of course? They're silent. Why? Because of this. The representatives have been bought out, unfortunately, because it's a republic. On paper, it looks like an amazing idea, but it's not. It's not. And that's how it's being done there. So, but no matter how, like you said, no matter how hard you vote, nothing's going to change because you're voting for the two sides of the same coin, a coin minted by the globalists, the parasite class. The parasite class you see behind the curtain that's not ever going to be appearing on public TV. And those are the people that control Rockefeller institutions, for example, the Club of Rome, the Council on Foreign Relations, et cetera, those groups that work lockstep with the Bank of International Settlements as the apex that controls the central banks, that controls the money flow, and therefore the prosperity of certain sectors of the economy. So no matter how hard we vote, voting is not the answer. And if somebody comes along and says, don't worry, ladies and gentlemen, I have the answer, just follow me. No, that is not the way to go. It's up to us. It's up to us. But now if I may put on my globalist hat for a moment and become one of them now. In my eyes, a nationalist is my primary threat. Someone like Hugo Chavez, someone like Hitler, who's a nationalist, because some nationalists are trouble to this unipolar world order. So, like I said, with my globalist hat on, I would eliminate nationalists first. That's why Bashar al-Assad is being targeted in Syria, and Hugo Chavez was eliminated, and so on and so on. And Gaddafi, I know Gaddafi was maybe not a nice person, but he tried to do many good things for his people and for Africa by making the the African dinar backed by gold. That would hopefully prosper the average Libyan. Of course, he was destroyed. So from the globalist perspective, nationalists must be limited. They are an impediment to the agenda. And then number two, it's the individual, us, that they will seek. Once the nationalists are gone, then it's up to, they will target then us. And that's what's happening, as we said, as they squeeze the middle class out to the point where, okay, we'll be completely subservient and begging for some reward to be given to us by the state. And the state will be, the reward will be a Trojan horse. It'll be in the form of, don't worry, like I said, central bank digital currency, universal basic income, we have you covered, don't worry. But as long as you behave, it comes with a huge caveat. And you mentioned something good about, sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna mention on your previous comment. I just feel it's the same mentality of the ruling class, and it doesn't matter, as you mentioned, it's that the elite globalist mentality in Israel that's doing what it's doing, in USA that's doing what it's doing, in Russia that's doing what it's doing. Like some of these folks, like I don't know why you would think that just because it's a different color, different culture, like Russian, that look at the history of the Soviet Union, how many people they exterminated. And here in Mexico, it's openly the Mexican government is working with cartels, killing us, killing citizens, killing journalists, killing politicians, businessmen. Total digital. I was talking again with my neighbor who voted for Scheinbaum in Morena, and even he is like talking in the park the other day. He's like, yeah, she just talked about Agenda 2030. He's learning about Agenda 2030, and he's like, yeah, they're talking about digitizing everything, So Mexico has this elite psychopathic ruling class. Canada, I was just reading, death by government, democide is now the fifth leading cause of death. The MAID program is now the fifth leading cause of death. So it's across the board. And I'm not playing, people pick, it's like NBA teams. They pick their team of the Russian flavor or the Chinese or the European. No, they're all the same. It's just absolute power corrupts, absolutely the moneyed power, and they all act the same. And your piece, there's some interesting quotes you write. Quote, I just want to read a few quotes from your article. To summarize, there's no multipolar world order. There's only one web of a global empire, which the sinister, psychopathic, spidery powers that shouldn't be have been incessantly spinning in their vain attempt to control all humanity. Later, you write, quote, to the power-nabbing, land-grabbing, resource-hogging globalists who purport to run this planet and who try to subjugate more and more parts of it and people on it with every passing year, Putin is dispensable and disposable. No matter how much he plays along with their agenda or perceives himself to be one of them, he cannot curry their favor forever. So, just before moving on to what you're talking about, the algorithm ghetto, what do you think is going on in Putin's mind? Lavrov, there's people who talk about Hermann Graf Sperbank, who's plugged in with Klaus Schwab and Cyber Polygon and all that sort of stuff. Are they just basically hoping that they're just going to be able to continue on, or do you think they're going to do to Putin what they did to like a Milosevic type figure or Gaddafi figure?
Yeah, no, exactly. You hit on some good points there, Roy. Yeah, because Putin, perhaps, again, we don't know what it is in mind, but he thinks perhaps maybe if I play along to a certain extent, along with their agenda, rolling in the biosecurity state, the central bank digital currency, if I play along with everything the WEF says, sustainable goals, facial recognition software, all that stuff, maybe they'll give me a break. But as we see what's happening with the SMO in Ukraine, every red line that Putin puts down, well, it gets crossed every time. And the Pentagon just says, "Whoa, no, sorry, just our mistake. Don't worry, it won't happen again." But then again, a month later, it happens again. They cross Putin's line. Even though, granted, to Putin's credit, he has been trying to reach some kind of a peace agreement to stop the fighting, but that's not on the Pentagon's agenda. At least it hasn't been up to now. So perhaps he thinks, okay, by continually trying to make some peace initiatives and then playing along with the globalist game, okay, they may curry favor to me. But as we saw what happened to Milosevic, that didn't work out too well. So could we be seeing a Yugoslavia 2.0 right now? I believe it was Rurik Skywalker in his excellent Substack where he mentioned that Yugoslavia 2.0. That could very well happen. Could this be the start as the Ukrainian forces have done their offensive into the Kursk region, Russia's Kursk region? Or is that another way to maybe bring everybody to the table now? We'll see. We'll see. But there's this constant talk about war that's not going well, except for the military-industrial complex. It'll be a boon for them if we're allowed to talk about it. And then you have another aspect of Putin where, as a statist, like as an empire, or like we said, what every empire has done, because the West is rolling out the central bank digital currency, etc. Well, they feel obligated. Well, we have to too. Okay, they're using facial recognition software to monitor every single aspect of their societies. Well, maybe we should do the same thing too. So you have a little bit of that too. He said, well, we can't be left behind, can we? We have to implement the same things, the same draconian measures, the same technocracy being rolled out in the West. Well, we have to do it too. So there's a bit of that aspect as well. So we have that, and voting, like you say, you're voting like different colors. Like you said, we could vote for a team blue, team red. That's what the average person thinks that they're doing. But what they don't understand, for example, let's say they're sports teams, the manager of one team and the manager of the other team are actually the same managers, or they're working together, and the team captains actually work for the same managers that's controlling both teams and scouting for future potential players. The scouts are done by the same group. And that is, as I said, at the apex, we have the BIS, Bank of International Settlements, which the Bank of Russia answers to, the Bank of Japan answers to, the Bank of England answers to, the Fed in the United States, et cetera, et cetera. We can go on and on, but they all answer to this highly secretive BIS institution. So that's the global umbrella. So voting for red or blue doesn't make.
And even the sports analogy, I've interviewed on TNT, I forget his name, I think it's Brian Tuohy, who's written many books on sports and how literally NBA, NFL, I mean, you name it, the soccer, football, it's rigged. And you've got the managers of both teams, certain, not everyone, but maybe certain players or referees or coaches are on board. People can check out his books, and he makes a very convincing case that a lot of sports everything's rigged. That's just kind of, it sucks. Like, I want to see real, authentic competition, whether it's between nations or sports, and it's just like everything is fake and GAY, as they say. So just before moving on to the algorithm ghetto question, what do you make then of BRICS multipolarity? What will become of that? We all know, I've mentioned this ad nauseum, BRICS was coined by a World Economic Forum young global leader and Goldman Sachs. So, and there are analysts, there's a lot of hype. The pundits, as you say, are hyping it up. But I talk to people who are more sober-minded and say, this whole de-dollarization talk is going to take much longer, much longer. And so I can view multipolarity and BRICS as, again, it's a globalist project. I can see this becoming the new sort of United Nations, the new system for world government. I don't know. What do you think is going to become of BRICS or multipolarity?
Yeah, the multipolarity will disappear eventually. But you're right. This is happening at different paces. It may seem like, okay, it's going to come out next year. It's done. No. There's still more technology that has to be developed for all these algorithms, and the AI, artificial intelligence, to be deployed requires huge amounts of energy. We're not there yet to deploy that energy on a global basis, right? So part of me says right now what they're doing is they're throwing things like a dartboard. They're just throwing mud balls at the wall, and they want to see what sticks. That's what they were trying to do with the rollout of the biomedical countermeasures, the so-called COVID-19 vaccine. I'm using biomedical countermeasures because that's exactly what the United States DoD calls it. They never once called it a vaccine. It's a biological countermeasure. So with that, that's what they're trying to do. That was a massive social experiment. How can we lock down an entire society, shut down economies, even shut down the global economy, and manipulate people? And let's see what they're going to do for future possible avian flu or the monkeypox, whatever they're going to roll out. But in the meantime, they're just throwing things at the wall and they want to see, okay, what's going to stick? What's going to stick? Let's see how far can we go? How far can we go with the 15-minute cities, right? For example, and there are people in England, in the UK, they're fighting back, they're backlashing, right, by spraying the cameras, etc., and things like that. So, how fast is this going to be implemented? No, it's nothing. That's a done deal yet. It's up to us to stop it, and that's what gives me hope. I know what they would like to do to deploy the Chinese model of technocracy globally. China, so our listeners understand, the viewers, it is a complete technocracy, every single aspect of it. There's no way it's a part of against the globalists in the West. No. China's playing lockstep again with them. And then while other people say, no, European Union, that's our answer. I say, okay, European Union, now let's take a look at that. How can that be an answer? Let's take a look at the Chinese government, how it's structured. And let's take the European Parliament, for example. Okay, in China, we have the Central Politburo, made up of 25 individuals. The Central Politburo, and where Xi Jinping is number one in that 25. Out of the 25, he's number one. And all the other Politburo members around him are unelected officials. So that we have in the Politburo. That's the executive body of the power structure in common China. Now let's look at the European Parliament. We have the European Commission, made up of 27 members, with right now Ursula von der Leyen as the president of the European Commission. Yes, she's elected by the European Parliament members, just like Xi Jinping is elected by the National People's Congress. But the other individuals are unelected officials. So we have in EU, the European Commission is made up of a body of unelected officials. Most of the time, they're bankers. For example, Mario Draghi, when he was in there, they're all from the banking institution, closely linked with the BIS again, and the central banks around the world.
Or Mark Carney. They want to bring in Mark Carney to be Prime Minister of Canada.
Yeah, there you go. Who better than a banker, and a Rothschild banker, to be ready or him? Look at Macron. He's from the Rothschilds banking industry. He's right there, front and center, enslaving the French people as best he can. Right? So is the European system, the European Parliament outside the European Commission? Yes, we have the Parliament made of approximately 570 or 520 individuals, approximately. I could be wrong. They are elected, yes, by the individual European member states. Okay, but then let's look at Communist China. The National People's Congress, which is outside the Politburo, is made of 3,000 members. They are elected, yes, by different provinces in China and autonomous regions. But they just rubber stamp. They merely rubber stamp whatever the Politburo says. And the same holds true in the European Parliament. The European Commission says, okay, this is what's going to happen. This is what we're going to roll out. European Parliament, yeah, they just rubber stamp say, yeah, it's all good. It's all good, folks.
I was literally going to say that. I was literally going to say rubber stamp. It's just a formality, whether it's in China or Europe. And then these guys, the voting from the province for the EU MEP, whatever, and then they rubber stamp, and there's no democracy. It's dictatorship. And I was just going to say, because you mentioned China, I view basically we're at a point now where the countries, and some of my past podcast guests have elucidated on this, that they're basically empty shells now, countries. They're just formalities, and that they are all, from China to Mexico to Russia to America, Canada to Brazil, you name it. These empty shells are ruled. We're at a point in history. I think we're nearing the end of history, the end times, because everything's just concentrating at a global level, and you've got this sort of like global mainframe or octopus, and it's comprised of this international, global, transnational class of, you mentioned banks and corporations, IT, big tech, military, intelligence, and that is what is running. That is connected to the the party in China, collective Kremlin, Brussels, and that's really what's ruling. And so we're at that last stage where it's just kind of pulling everything together to have this world government. And what you're talking about, want to get your thought on this as well. What's happening in UK now across the Western world. So it seems like now the West is trying to catch up with the East in terms of the dictatorship. And I'm like, I keep saying this, none of this has been surprising to most of us who are in tune, following all these things for many years and decades. But I always say, I'm not surprised, but I'm shocked. It's not as we've been expecting this, but it's still shocking to be living through it now. To see some of my past podcast guests, like Yuri Rushka, sentenced to jail for years for nothing, for thought crime, for being a loudmouth. C.J. Hopkins, American in Germany, sentenced to jail for being a loudmouth. UK now. So 40 years later, after 1984, they're now bringing in the criminalization of thought. So, this was anathema up until now. Magna Carta, blah, 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 all that stuff. The U.S. Constitution, Revolution, blah, blah, blah. French Revolution, liberté, égalité, fraternité. Come on, please. What a joke. And now it's just like, if you think wrong, you get fined and you go to jail. This is like in all the dystopian films you've ever seen. This is what they have projected. And we're here now. Starmer, Trilateral Commission guy, Bilderberger, Weffer, Keir Stalin, Kim, what do they call him? Keir Jong-un. It's just mind-blowing to see us now in the West transitioning to this. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, no, you nailed it, Roy. The West is catching up with the East. Where have you seen all these things? Like where public shaming takes place, where thought becomes a crime and you're punished for it. That's all in China. That's all in communist China. So we're, like I said, it is a full-fledged technocracy in every aspect, using AI, using facial recognition software to curtail your movement within the country. If you say a certain thing or type a certain thing online, it is immediately caught. They surveil everything, and then you're publicly shamed. Your face is put on a digital billboard so that everybody knows exactly who you are, and now you no longer have access to your banking accounts in some cases, or money all of a sudden disappears out of your account. Well, because I jaywalked across the street, they got me in camera, and all of a sudden the money's withdrawn from my account. That's exactly where we're heading. That's where, and the Starmer has already proven that. It's the Canadian government has proven that when we had a freedom convoy in Ottawa. What did they do with some of the people that were trying to use GoFundMe and to support the truckers? Well, they shut their accounts down. Exactly what's happened in China already. So you're right. We are just trying to catch up with the technocracy already unveiled in China. I view China as it was their first experiment to see how is this going to work. Everyone says, well, Nixon sent Kissinger over to formulate the open door policy to get China, to open its doors to trade and everything. But what people don't ask is, Nixon did not send Kissinger. It was the Rockefellers. The Club of Rome, those people that sent Kissinger over. After the Mao experiment was done, all the millions of dead were gone. Then let's open up China now and let's try this experiment, see how it's going to work out. And it's worked out to a T. It is a perfect technocracy, as Patrick Wood has elucidated to in many of his wonderful articles.
Yeah, and the EU is also, I feel like the EU is parallel to the China technocratic experiment. The EU is the Western version. I was just going to mention Patrick Wood in his latest newsletter. I think he said he's publishing the early research that he and Anthony Sutton did in the 70s. I just got this book in the mail, Holly Sklar, Trilateralism, the Trilateral Commission and Elite Planning for World Management. And Patrick Wood in his latest email said that basically Trilateral Commission is it, that is the sort of brain for planning all of this stuff out that we are seeing. And I think he said, and he names the companies and we're seeing all these companies, through these companies, they're deploying all of these digital solutions. I mean, I follow Biometric Update, which is a great resource, and every day it's detailing how all of these companies are coming to with the UN and the EU agencies and these private companies and the World Coins and the Sam Altmans and IBM. I mean, you name it, across the board, they're all working together to build this global dystopia. But as you say, I think it is precarious what they're trying to build out. I always just say in my everyday daily life, I don't know how they're going to do it very well, because nonstop, just basic things always falter, glitches in my daily life, and in all aspects of society. So there's weather events, electricity, internet. It's still not up to par. So that's something we got going for us. Compliance, I think, is the issue. But I'm not faithful. I don't have a lot of faith in humanity in that sense, because I think, man is fallen, sinful nature, and we've just seen most of the people go along with the crowd. So any other thoughts on anything that we haven't brought up, or what the future is going to look like? What do we do? What preps do we make, and so forth?
Yes, yeah. Well, coming back to your word on compliance, like you said, that's key. Like I said, I think the entire COVID narrative was one big social experiment to see what level of compliance can we get out of these people by locking down, et cetera, all the measures, the draconian measures that they took. So you're right, that is the litmus test. And as you say, unfortunately, many people did comply, but hopefully many did wake up, because I do talk to a lot of people who have woken up and say, okay, I get it now. Democracy, the word democracy is purely that's it. It's a word. It's a slogan. It is a slogan to make you feel good. That's all it is. We do not have democracy. We've not had it for a very long time, I would argue, even before World War I started. That's why World War I was able to go along. And as I said, even some people say, no, America is the answer. They at least hold out some hope. Okay, but as I said, when the Americans are voting for the representative can easily be bought. So he's not representing the wishes of his constituency in the Congress. He's representing the wishes of whatever political organization like AIPAC or industrial complex voted for them. I'm not saying that every single Congress member is like that, but I'm saying the vast majority can be bought out. So it's not a good system as well. There's no democracy there. They're just voting between two sides of the same coin, a business elite class. That's what you're voting for. That is closely connected then to the World Economic Forum and the other Trilateral Commission. That's the secret behind the curtain that controls everything, that pulls the strings. And Council on Foreign Relations, which was created in 1921 by the Royal Institute of International Affairs, and the Alfred Milner Group. So I said, in some cases it seems overwhelming. People say, well, what's the point? Let's just give up. No. There's always a point, because they're not at it yet. Everything that they're trying to roll out depends on one thing, and that's if we acquiesce to all of their agendas. And non-compliance is the issue. And non-compliance does not mean violent protest now and go burn down buildings. What's happening in San Francisco? It's not nothing to do with that. It's like the trucker convoy in Ottawa. It's peaceful, just a sit-in, and it can be something that we can do every day in our lives. Like, we don't have to go to a ballot box to vote. You can vote by just planting a garden. That's the way I vote. That is a real vote that can change. It can be any size garden. It doesn't have to. It can just be a flower pot with some herbs in it, or it can be a big garden, 3 meters by 4 meters, whatever. Plant something, start to become independent like that, and network. Because they would like us to think that there are not many like-minded people out there, that we're isolated. No, this is just some fringe unit. No, there's millions upon millions of us out there. And just by talking to the average person, you'll see a lot of people say, yeah, you know what, given the same situation, what happened in 2020, I wouldn't do it again. It's taught me a lot. It really has taught me a lot. Even from my self perspective too. The entire scandemic really has totally woken me up that to the point, like you once said, Herbo, on an interview, I'm skeptical of everything now. Everything I hear, is that really real? I don't know. It seems harsh, like maybe we're being too cynical sometimes, but that's what the past 4 years has taught me now. It really opened my eyes. You could say, okay, we've been truly red-pilled now. Like we've taken the full pill now, and we see the world what has always been there. We just haven't seen it, but it's always been there, and now it's being revealed thanks to the efforts of this globalist, the parasitic class. They're revealing their hand to us, and they're hoping, well, hopefully you won't notice, but I think their egos, their arrogance, it gets the better of them, and their hubris, and they try to show exactly what they're doing. Like, for example, Chrystia Freeland, what she did in Canada by shutting down the accounts of certain individuals. That's perfect. That's showing exactly this is what we're going to do, folks. This is exactly it. So they don't realize perhaps, but it's helping us, millions of us, to wake up and say, hey, okay, I'm going to take everything with a grain of salt now, but life is still beautiful. This world God has created for us is incredible. We just go to a park and feel the breeze on yourself. Look at the birds, look at the trees. All 8.1 billion of us chose to be here at this moment in human history. All 8.1 billion souls are here right now. As I said on our last podcast, we're all spiritual beings connected to God. We chose to be here to experience this, and hopefully we're going to turn the ship around and not comply, as you say, not comply by doing simple little tasks, by, like I say, planting gardens. Try to hold off as long as you can. The CBDCs are coming. They're coming, right? No matter how we are trying to use cash or whatever, you can see it's being unveiled. In some countries here in Europe, I can see it's scary. Like 80% of businesses won't accept cash anymore. So, wow, okay. And again, all these things are being sold to us as a convenience. You don't want to handle dirty money. You can get germs and a flu from that, right? And it's just easier. Like, why carry out all this stuff? It's bulky, it's heavy. Just use a card. It's so much easier. That's how they will continually try to sell all this stuff. The facial recognition software, smile as you pay for something. You don't even now need to put a PIN code in. Just use your retina or your face, and there you go. What could be easier? So again, it's all being sold at that as a public convenience. But I believe, and hopefully I'm wrong, but there's a sinister agenda behind it that we have to be aware of. And thanks to the wonderful work that you're doing, hopefully people will be waking up and just spreading the word, just by one person spreading it to another and another and so on. That's how the awakening starts. The awakening is here. We are awakening slowly.
I mean, even if we do lose, I think we have to have this attitude. I always like to read this quote from Imran Khan, who said, "If victory is certain, even a coward will fight, but real bravery is when one dares to fight, when defeat is certain." Like the movie 300, Sparta, all that. I came across a quote from Leo Tolstoy the other day. There's something in the human spirit that will survive and prevail. There is a tiny and brilliant light burning in the human heart that will not go out no matter how dark the world becomes. And it's that sort of spirit, I think you allude to, that we need to latch onto and continue going forward, no matter how insane it gets with CBDCs. And when you mention Europe and cashless, I mean, that is frightening. That is insane. I haven't really experienced that. When I went to the US a couple times last year, I can see that advance, and there were places where I couldn't buy coffee for cash. And it's weird because all my life, even before all of this stuff, when I was a teenager, I just intuitively, just common sense thought, like, I just use cash for everything. Like, it makes sense from privacy, from convenience. I hate the cards. It's for me, it's convenient. I don't take my phone with me. I just walk. I don't like jewelry. I don't wear jewelry. I just walk out of the house, with the shirt and pants and sandals, and it's convenient, just in cash. And I don't need why do I need my phone? But they force you to, how else are you going to pay? You need your phone to pay or for anything these days. And what you mentioned as well, boycotting the systems, not giving them your money, I think that can be powerful. they force us to buy new laptops, desktop computers, and phones. But I've been reading, like, if you install Linux, you can make old devices continue on for so many years. Don't buy the new phone. Don't feed the beast. Don't go to the big box stores. As much as one can. I kind of, like, I'm a minimalist. I barely buy anything. I don't need much, and so don't feed the big conglomerates, the Walmarts, which are tied to the BlackRocks and the Vanguards and stuff like that. And as you say, become more independent. And I think if enough people did that, because that goes back to what you're saying earlier, this empire needs the resources, the economy, to be able then to purchase the hardware for all of the digitalization and software. And if they don't get enough of those resources to deploy, they're going to be set back, right? So we're definitely in this war. Fun times, as you say. We're here at this moment for a reason. That's even a biblical term. I forget right now, but I vaguely recall that, we are in the moment that we were meant to be at this point in history. You were created, God sort of, you were created in this year, not in the Middle Ages, not before Christ. And I just had something come to me, as you mentioned. Alex Jones would say the answer to 1984 is 1776. I don't necessarily agree. I view a lot of 1776 being part of some occult, Masonic thing. The answer to 1984 is 33 AD, right? Jesus. Oh, that's my opinion. But anyways, any closing thought? And I believe you don't have a presence online, but people can find your articles. You've got an ebook, Global Research, and I'm sure you'll be continuing writing future articles.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, that's my way of just, again, spreading the word, just so people can wake up. If even one person changes their mind about something great, that's a victory. But I like what you said, what Tolstoy wrote there, right, about the light of the heart. What he's really talking about is the light of the soul, which is we are connected with God. And it's exciting to be here right now. It can seem very scary and daunting in some cases, but it's also an exciting time, because this is a human history's point where technology has reached such a point where we can either destroy everything or turn it around. And speaking of destruction, we hear now a lot about this talk about possible conflict in the South China Seas between China and the United States. Again, could that just be warmongering? Again, a boon for the military-industrial complex. And again, it's there to keep us in that state of fear, because when you're in a state of fear, you're incapable of thinking clearly, logically, and networking, right? You rather huddle down and just be to yourself because you're so scared. But we just have to lift off that and say, no, we'll not comply. We'll not be living in fear. The world is still very beautiful here, and we have to make it even more beautiful.
That's a great final thought there. All right, everyone, check out David's writing. The links are in the description. And as always, great to have you on Geopolitics and Empire.
Thank you for having me, Herbo. Thank you so much. Buona